bouncing all over the place. That's okay. Post-editing, that's fun. Hi, guys! Now we're officially going live with this thing. And I'm recording locally. Because, yay.
This is a recording. Blah.
Okay, so, last time, you guys met somebody who was an absolute doll. Literally. Who was haunting this abandoned theater. And found out that she was actually a nice, if not somewhat crazy spirit. Who had essentially murdered her replacement when an evil, devious plan was hatched to sell her as property and replace her with a fresh new singer.
I beat by all technicality. Shoot.
What was that?
Nothing!
I'd also like to point out to everybody that I'm proud of my players for completely derailing my boss fight and then turning it into a fun role-playing experience, and I'm not even being facetious. Even if my somewhat monotone voice would lead you otherwise.
She is very
Yeah, we're going like, the voice says otherwise.
No, I'm very proud.
You're adorable.
You're all, I'm so proud of y'all. Y'all my babies.
Bah.
On a side note, an Amazon delivery notice came 2 days late when it already had been delivered.
Remember recording.
So, where did we left off? Are we picking up exactly where we left off, or are you
I
wanting to
believe we
skip?
left off with you guys going back to the tavern with Remus.
I
So
need
that brings us
a drink.
Baduk
Well,
here.
I think they were. I went ahead and likely stayed working with her on that. I don't remember her name. What was it?
Oh god. Oh, it's been weeks. Ah! Doll.
T. Fox, her brain is going like a hamster wheel.
Dude, I guess I've been relying on KTP as my crutch to remember things that I'm too stupid to. One second.
And
The hamster's dead.
And I don't know if I have that recording saved yet.
Yeah, KTP is usually the one who remembers everything for me.
You might want a notebook, sweetie.
I do have one, I just don't use it. Oh no. I have billion! Billion Tegan.
There's also a notepad on your computer. Comes standard with Windows. And
Bleppis. Yee.
Well, I guess we're just gonna. Guess we'll just say Spring went and rented. Wait, no, we have horses provided to us by. We still have those horses provided to us by the church, don't we?
It was a cart.
Or the temple.
Oh,
It's a cart.
A cart with 2 horses.
2 horses.
Well, Spring's gonna go. Does this place? Well, you know what? Fuck it. Spring's gonna go around and see if he can find like a stable that has like horses and stuff for sale.
There's a stable directly next to the inn. You can ask there, or you can try and search to find a stable somewhere else that sells horses.
You know what? Let's go ahead and try the one that's next to the inn first.
Okay.
So I am currently looking for the stable keep.
Okay, so are you walking up and talking to them?
I say for right now, yes, I'm looking for him.
Okay, so when you walk up to the building, it's the early morning. There's some smoke that's in the air from everybody making their breakfast in their, fireplace stoves.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a couple people puttering about, but it seems fairly early. Everybody's still kind of in their houses. But in front of the stable is kind of a stout man. He's probably about 4 feet tall, and he appears to be a badger.
I walk up to the dispatcher. Good morning, sir.
Hi.
Uh, do you happen to sell horses by chance?
Uh, not by trade, but I mean, I got one. Poor old man couldn't keep him anymore, gave him over to me, but I have no use for a third horse.
How much would you be willing to take to part with the horse?
Well, you see, I'm a market. This horse would take 50 gold, but I'm not looking to make a harsh sale. So I'll do you 42.
Let's see. I think what I still have 50. I still have 58. Um, tell you what. What do you say? What do you say we do 40 even?
I'll do you 48, and you can keep the saddle.
All right. You know what? That sounds like a deal. Spring's gonna go ahead and reach into his pack, pull out his coin purse, and hand over the 48 gold.
Uh, he, you see, he quickly pulls out this. He's actually got a box in his bag that he puts his money into, and then he seals it up and he locks it and tucks it back into his bag.
Oh, wait. Spring
And
does or the
he,
badger?
the badger does, and you
Oh,
see,
okay.
Badger.
the badger waves you to follow him, and he takes you over to this steed, and it's probably the most beautiful chestnut brown steed you've ever seen. It's just pure chestnut with a like slightly like golden auburn mane, and it's a nice horse.
Ooh. Uh, did the previous owner give the horse a name that I should know?
His name's Pliskin.
Pliskin? Cosma, or I mean, Cosma. Spring approaches the horse and kind of uh holds out like a sugar cube to the horse and just gently approaches it to kind of show it that he is friendly.
Make a handle animal check.
Let me see here. I should let's see, handle animal. Where think I there it is. I rolled a 7.
No, that's enough. It's you're giving a horse a sugar cube. It's not exactly a difficult thing.
True enough.
So the horse just seems completely what would be the term? Completely comfortable with your presence. It just walks forward and it takes the sugar cube out of your hand. It kind of like scrapes your palm with its teeth, that way a horse does.
Yeah.
And you've got like a slimy patch left on your hand, but the horse just seems quite happy.
Spring gently pets the side of the horse, takes the reins, and hops onto its back.
Okay, the saddle seems not as nice as the horse, but it's still a usable saddle. It looks like something probably a farmer would have used.
Uh, well, thankfully, I know back in Spring's hometown, Waywarn, he'd be able to get a nicer saddle, so this will do at least for his trip, back home.
Okay.
But I'm gonna wait till the others go, so that way, Spring can announce his intentions to head back home, to the others. That way, they're not wondering where the fuck did Spring go.
Okay, so it is a 2-day trip back to Waywarn.
Right. So
Mm.
again, very important that they're aware.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So who wants to go next?
At this point, I'm going ahead and likely still within the theater house, still reviewing basics on management and other things with her. And at some point, I go like, you know what? when I don't have to go anywhere else, I think I might be staying here.
So you're saying this to her. When is this? Is this in the morning?
Probably in the morning after reviewing a whole lot with her, because there's simply so much to go over.
Yeah, and you don't actually need to sleep either.
Yeah. And I could probably sit in conversation all night and still get my quote unquote cool down time.
Okay, so the doll just she looks at you, and then you see she kind of reaches into an area where she's got a pocket at the back of her dress that's kind of like hidden in with kind of the laces,
Mm-hmm.
and she produces a document, and you can see that she has had the deed to the place on her this entire time.
Like, wow.
And you
How old
see
is this?
there's two other names on it that have been crossed out.
Mm-hmm.
One of them is way too faded to actually make out. It looks like the ink's just degraded because like ink can only last so long when in contact with the air.
Yeah.
But the other name is Cromwell Higgins, and it's been crossed out quite violently.
Mm-hmm. I look through the things. Is there any names that aren't crossed out?
um, there's her name, but it's also really faded. It seems the original two names are probably well over 100 years old on the document.
Mm.
And the most recent one is probably only maybe a decade old.
I go ahead and look over at her and I say, "Are you sure of this?"
Oh, I'm not giving it to you. I'm offering to let you have a, how do I put this? It's
A
legal
day.
tradition if your name is under mine that if I'm not around, you have basic control over this place. You can't have ownership, but it means that you can essentially make business decisions on my
Huh, fair
behalf.
enough. You might want to make sure that you get the documenting updated and properly placed with the registrar, I imagine. Register
Well,
of Deeds.
you'd have to convince him to come here because I can't leave.
Yeah, that shouldn't be too hard. After all, it's not unheard of for people to be invited to go ahead and help handle business. That said, we probably do need to go ahead and start getting this place cleaned up a bit and make it more presentable, especially if you want to progress towards a new opening night. I don't know how much damage has occurred over this. We're going to have to check for dry rot in the wood, perhaps repair some windows. Um, that might take a little bit of time to and we might not be able to have all of it before before we need to start opening the place to earn money for additional repairs.
Well, I do have one idea.
Well,
And you see the doll, she walks over to the piano, and you see that she runs her hand over the mannequin that was kind of slumped over in the piano bench.
mm-hmm.
And you see this strange, like, green energy trails from her fingertips and kind of imbues the doll with some kind of sense. And as you see, the doll, which has hands more like hers than the other ones, with actual digits, starts to play the piano and plays a very gentle waltz. And you see as all the other marionette-looking dolls around the place start getting up, and you see they actually just start cleaning and moving broken chairs into like a big pile and setting all the tables to the side as if it's closing time. And
Just
overall,
basic.
they're one of them sweeping.
Well, this will certainly make it easier to maintain the place. That's for certain. That's going to make it a lot easier.
I'm afraid I'm not too good at getting my own hands dirty, but I'd say this is a mite bit better than simply floating things around randomly.
Well, yeah. And technically, just like any other staff, the mannequins can, of course, be dressed for the occasion. Now, of course, that's a little bit expense, but you don't have to worry about people working in more hazardous jobs such as in rigging or anything else, which is always a good plus. So that would definitely be something we're going to have to look at too.
I
Like
think that
which Go ahead.
if we can hire a few good men and get this place up to a clean standard, and well, honestly, some of the stuff is pretty old. We could replace it, but
I think not replace everything. Certainly restore it. We may have to go ahead and have some fixtures mimicked and things like that, where they are no longer operable. But perhaps we should keep some of the old charm. After all, why throw away what can work? Especially once we establish a good aesthetic, we can integrate that with, say, more modern standards without losing the old world charm.
well, I see other windows, and they have brighter lights than ours, and I mean, at night we always had a problem of this place being a bit too dim. We'd have to set lanterns along the entire perimeter of the stage.
I might be able to come up with some lighting ideas, though we might need the help of a glassmaker to ensure they aren't too harsh. Glass isn't exactly an expertise of mine. Quick question. If I want to, this is out of character, if I want to do something like rudimentary electrical, I'm assuming that would that be something I would be able to achieve, or I'd need to find out if the materials were available for it?
Yes, there are rules for it too.
Oh, it actually has rules for electrical.
Not for electrical, but we're just going to consider electrical to be a magic item that doesn't have a magic property.
Okay, so basically treat it like that for the purposes of how it functions.
It will work like a magic item, but it's not good. Like using dispel magic on it
Ain't gonna work.
isn't going to work unless it has a magical power source.
Okay.
Where is? Sorry, I'm trying to find the section on downtime. Downtime revisited. It should be somewhere here.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you're in that new book of yours, aren't you? You just wanted to crack
No,
that
this
out
is
so bad.
Xanathar's guide.
Ah, okay.
So there's buying a magic item. Where's crafting? Here it is. Crafting an item. So a common magic item. Common will require a week of work and 50 GP, and I can say you can probably make a number of magic items, if they're common, equal to your proficiency modifier.
Yeah.
So you could make 2 for 50 GP if you worked on it for a week in your downtime. Not
Yeah.
complete work, but a week's worth of downtime. I'd say if you did a rush job, you could probably do it in 3 days.
I'm gonna go ahead and have him just start laying out the thing, and I go like, so theater business isn't exactly my forte. We're more of a travel. I was more of, I believe, my at least whatever memories I have seem to indicate some sort of circus. But we can make electrical lights. The thing
A
is,
what tickle lights? What are electrical
electricity.
lights?
After a moment of tinkering, he basically just produces an arc of electricity between two fingers.
Okay,
This,
that's
and it,
prestidigitation, I'd assume.
yeah, it basically probably emits at least a fair light, and as he modulates the power, he can change the brightness of it.
Okay.
And now, this is just an example. This is what's referred to as an arc light, simply produced by the arcing of electricity. Not the most efficient method, though. That really depends on what we can do, really depends on power source, access of materials for wiring and transport of it, etc., and how many lights we actually need to produce the best effect. Then, of course, we have to have a way to dampen the light because, as you can see, it's rather harsh.
What about, I know that glassmakers make, it's the tavern glass across the street.
You think that would work? Maybe perhaps make it a bit more opaque depending on how bright we need it?
Yes, it would
Or
also help with the color. I don't think a very bright white light would suit this kind of atmosphere.
probably not. We need something a bit warmer, more welcoming. Maybe perhaps warmer than sunlight, between sunlight and a bit of a warmer tone, such as candles. Somewhere between ought to be perfect for that.
I have to ask, though, what is a circus?
A circus. It's basically when you have a traveling group of, well, let's just say that some might say a traveling group of miscreants, but oftentimes it's more basically performers, be it with animal acts and things like that, such as performing with animals and in a way showing off feats of animal handling, uh, feats of acrobatics, such as walking across a rope with just your feet on it,
Is this
perhaps a
once a
pole.
year that this happens?
It travels. You may go from multiple places, and you find that each location you go to, you perform for a different crowd several times before moving on to the next.
Her face kind of lights up and she says, "So you mean you have All Fool's Day every day?"
When we're not traveling.
She seems pretty amazed by this.
Yeah.
We had All Fool's Day here once.
Well, provided there's a place we can do something like that, we might be able to throw on a bigger show, more of my kind of thing.
You see, she actually points upward. And
Eh,
she looks up.
He cranes his neck, looking up towards whatever it is she's indicating.
This actual theater has a very tall ceiling.
Yeah?
And by that I mean the ceiling goes all the way up to the top of the building, and there's several balconies up there.
Wow, now that you think of it, I didn't really look up there. I thought it was mostly just things like rooms for staff and things like that.
Only
But I
on one
guess that's to the
half.
side.
On the other half, it's open so that people can watch from their rooms.
I actually have a good idea now. Perhaps in the rebuilding of this place and moving things around, perhaps it adds skylights for daytime performances.
Skylights?
Basically, you know those windows you're so fond of from across the street? Imagine
Mhm.
them on the roof. They keep the elements out and yet allow the light to flow in.
But what if they were to break? They'd hurt people.
That's why you always have to be careful with that. You can also establish things like nets, which could support that, or other ways to protect the glass. Depending on how the glass blower makes it, it can even shatter into small enough pieces where no one's going to get harmed by it.
Oh, this is quite a lot to take in. I'll have to look and see how much money we have left.
That'll be something we're going to have to go over over time. Not all the upgrades are going to come at once. We of course need to get the minimal operation we need for good lighting, probably would be the primary place to start, because let's be honest, lighting is one of the biggest important things for both the safety of staff as well as our patrons. You must always make sure there is adequate lighting. This is also important in things like the kitchen as well. When you're dealing with a knife, especially if you're a master of keeping it sharp, you're always going to want to be able to see exactly where your blade goes. And after all, how else can you present the outfits that you've spend on for all of your actors?
Well, we do have quite a wardrobe here. Um, this theater's been in operation for a very long time.
We might need some new additions and we may need some maintenance on some of them, but some of those will be good for some period pieces, I'm quite sure.
Come with me, she says as she kind of floats up off the ground and starts floating toward the back room.
He goes ahead and heads off with her for now. You can
You
probably
see,
segue
she
for now.
literally just goes through the wall as if it's not there.
And I go like, you might want to consider walking through doorways in the future, though, by the way, when he finally catches up with her.
When you get into the back room, um, the place that has all of the creepy mannequins and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
you see that there's an area that was probably used to put these dolls together,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a toolbox there.
Yeah.
And she just points to this big box of tools and goes, "Huh?
Ah, a workshop. Now this I can get behind.
I'm not particularly good with my hands,
Well, your
but
hands weren't built for this.
I think you could probably make a good job make good use out of these tools."
Likely, and it's an excellent space to use them in too.
So, this is a set of Tinker's tools, for clarification.
Mm-hmm.
So, you now actually have, like a workbench with Tinker's tools that you can use at any time.
Basically, a workshop level achieved.
Yes.
We should also allow Remy a chance to go.
Anyway,
We should move to Remy now.
yes, let's give others an opportunity. I was trying to say.
So, Remy, what is Rowan gonna do?
Kitty, kitty, kitty.
He wakes up in the morning.
So this is after the events of the theater.
Yes. In the following morning.
Rowan would likely. I'm gonna just sort of fast forward through the events of the mornings. Obviously, like he's just gonna go down, get his breakfast, realize that KTP might have stayed up a bit too late, or what you know what I meant.
Yeah.
Kip,
Kib, yes.
Kib,
Yib.
and basically just he'd basically be looking at his gear. He has his glaive. His oh gosh, I have to go through my stuff again. He has his general backpack, his javelins, and his glaive. He'd probably go to any weaponsmith that's in town if there was one.
Okay.
Oh,
You can go and try to find a market.
Can I interject for a moment if I see Rowan?
Yes.
Spring kind of walks up to Rowan as they pass by on his horse. Good morning, Rowan.
Good morning, Spring.
How does this fine morning find you?
Without a horse,
I just bought it for personal travel. Hey, I'm gonna be gone for about 4 days.
Rowan raises an eyebrow at that.
Uh, from Mistaken Village to Waywarn is about a 2-day travel, so and I'm planning on returning home to gather up some supplies and stuff that we can use, especially if we're going to use this as a base, and maybe see if I can borrow a couple craftsmen to help rebuild the theater if we're going to use that as a base of operations. Might be useful to kind of bring along some of our more seasoned craftsmen to help speed along repair processes and stuff like that.
I see.
Um,
Well, safe travels then.
yes, I'm gonna let Lorgans and or I'm sorry, Oh my god. I'm gonna let
Thackeray.
I'm gonna let Thackeray and Kib know before I head out. Is there anything you feel you may need that you would like me to bring from my hometown?
I don't think Rowan has any, like, to my knowledge, I don't think he has any real connection back there or anything that he would actively want. So
Okay.
he'd just give a solemn shake of his head.
All right. Well, I will see. I will see you in about 4 days' time.
Rowan would say, yes, safe travels, and we'll be seeing you in 4 days' time.
Spring will just glide off toward. He'll just gallop over towards the theater to leave Rowan up to his business, and then that's going to conclude my interjection. Spring. I mean, T.
Yes. So Remy, you can go and try to find a market.
Yep. Rowan would basically go to try and indeed find a market.
Okay. Is Thack going to also head to the market to try and find materials at some point?
Likely, yes.
Okay, so we'll focus on Remy for now, but we can also have you be at the market, having wandered over there at some point soon.
Mm-hmm.
I'm turning on Rhythmbot. Feel free to adjust the volume a bit, because Rhythmbot can be like really varied in volume.
But yeah, he's probably going to be looking for the supplies he needs for electrical.
So as you walk through the streets, they're starting to get more populated with people, coming out to conduct their business. And it's pretty easy to find a market in any city. You just go wherever the streets widen, because you'll eventually hit a square where there's going to be a market. You just look for the widest streets you can. Usually find it. And where you end up is this big square. It's got some kind of statue in the middle, which appears to be a bear wrestling with a jaguar.
Interesting.
And there's a large church building, and then it's just market all along the edge of everything, and market stalls. You can hear the sound of hammering metal.
Rowan would follow that sound.
I'd probably make a beeline for that as well.
You see a much you see an older dragonkin, somebody who's clearly draconic lineage, but he's got these like dark iron scales, and he's very tall and looks probably quite old, actually. And he's hammering away on a very large double axe. He's got one edge of it, and he's working the edge of it.
Out of character, does he have the saggy iguana head?
Really?
What is all of this?
What?
So basically, going into this area, is it like a shop with weapons to look at, or is it like you would basically interact with the blacksmith more?
It's an outdoor smithing area, and it appears the inside has a kind of a showroom.
Okay.
But the outside has racks of weapons that are also for sale, and there's, the blacksmith himself.
Who is not for sale.
I was about to say, is the blacksmith for sale?
He's worth more than you have, and he's definitely more than you can handle.
That's funny.
Ooh, woo.
I started that with that kind of joke, but then Rebby took it there.
He may be more than I can handle, but Rowan is a big bear.
Oh! Well, that
Anyways.
went down the gutter quick, didn't it?
Constitution check.
Anyways,
Constitution check. The dragon's atop.
so Rowan would give a nod to the blacksmith as they go about their work, and honestly, Rowan would just, before interacting with them, is gonna take time to actually look over the stock of what they have both in and out.
On the outside, you see they have a lot of very normal looking weapons. They also have some really odd, like, bronze weapons, which you would kind of question why they would go for bronze. But they've got this kind of weird sheen to them when you look at them in the light, which doesn't look like normal bronze. They've also got a couple weapons where the steel is somewhat blued. Like it's literally got somewhat of a blue sheen to it, but it's not as if it's like a coloration from heat. It looks like the steel actually just inherently has this color to it.
You said it has a bluish hue to it?
Yeah, it's steel with a bluish hue to it.
So at that, at seeing that, because I'm fairly certain that Rowan hasn't, at least to his knowledge, seen that, he would essentially be like, he'd go to the blacksmith and say, what is this blue steel that I'm seeing?
Oh, that's sky steel.
Raises a brow at what it was just said to him, like he's basically giving them a look like, I still have no idea what you're talking about.
Oh, it's an alloy. You see, instead of making it with charcoal, we make it with it's a special kind of tree that only grows up in the north of the island. It makes the steel come out with this kind of bluish color.
I see. Okay.
It's got an interesting property too. You see, he's very happy to show you stuff. He takes this sword from the rack and takes an appropriate scabbard out for it, scabbards it, and then slightly slides the blade out just for safety, so he's not waving a sword around. And he lets you look closely at the steel, and it looks like it has kind of a clouded pattern to it. It's obvious why it's called sky steel, because it does, at very close inspection, kind of look like a moderately cloudy day. The blue and the slight cloudiness to it. You see, it's got an interesting property. When you cut a man with this, the wound, it bleeds more than you'd expect for a sharp sword.
I see. So it more of like a gives it sort of a thought, more of like a serration.
Yes, but there's no serration. You see, serration tends to get broken in battle. You start with a serrated blade, and then after a couple times, parts of the blade have gone straight because there's chips and damage. Every little piece of serration is just another place where the blade can break. You see, this is great because it allows you to have the benefit of a serrated sword without it catching on anything or breaking. It's kind of like a flambarge, but a flambarge is much harder to craft.
So, in a non-threatening manner, which is kind of difficult for Rowan, he would grab his glaive off his back and basically hold it out in front of him and says, would you be able to forge something similar to this?
To that, that looks a little bit like rune steel. The exact shape, I might be able to mimic something close to it, but I could probably make a comparable weapon.
Like he sort of looks at his glaive. It's very clear that it's a bit beaten down because it's been with him since before he was showed up on this island.
How long have you
Eh,
had this thing, and how long has it been since you've taken it to a blacksmith?
To be entirely honest with you, since I woke up in on this island, I can't quite say. It's it's been with me for as long as I can imagine.
Well, it looks like you've been deflecting swords with the bloody thing.
That would be correct.
He just strokes his chin where there's a couple scales that are quite pointed that kind of look like a beard, although are obviously quite tough, like metallic scales.
Bearded dragon.
He is a bearded dragon, yes.
Yes.
As long as he has a better brain than a bearded.
You see, something this big. If I were to sell you an ordinary one, I'd probably say 25 gold. But if you want Sky Steel and you need it custom, it's probably going to double your price.
He gives a solemn nod to that.
Sky Steel is, for those who want that little extra in battle, it's definitely good, but you don't need it. Sky Steel is just useful to have when, let's just say, if you have one and the other guy doesn't, you are at a slight advantage, because any hit that you deal is probably going to start bleeding out.
Rowan would give a nod and he'd basically say, for the most part, I'm looking either to improve my current weapon or... One second. I'm looking for ways to either improve my weapon or find a suitable weapon of the same caliber. This one's been fairly it's been very trusty to me through my various battles, but you can only hold up one weapon for so long before it will eventually fall.
I mean, it's like that old ship problem. How many pieces on a ship can you replace until it's a new ship? You know?
He gives a nod and a chuckle. Yes, indeed.
Well, polearms like that don't typically get used by anybody except for sepulchre guard, couple church guard. So I don't have many exactly like that, but I think we have a couple things.
Alrighty.
So
And
what
I
he
assume this is
does,
where he's going to show stuff.
yeah, he takes the battle axe that he was working on, and he shoves the head of it back into the forge, closes a big iron door on it, and then he points at somebody, and you see somebody who is across doing a small amount of shopping runs over, and you see it's a smaller guy, probably also Dragonkin. He's kind of more of a brassy color, and he just seems to know to come and watch the shop while the big guy goes inside. So so with the outside now under watching eyes, the big guy walks inside the store, and you just see there's racks of weapons and tables of weapons and displays of armor everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And as he's going through, he comes over to a section of axes, all different shapes and kinds of axes for combat, for forestry, for all sorts of things. And as he keeps going, he eventually comes to a pile of barditions. So it's kind of an axe spear hybrid where the blade of the axe comes out at the end long enough to jab with, but also has the axe end on it. Kind of like a glaive.
Okay, and he'd be showing this to Rowan.
Yeah, so you see there's some of these bronze ones. There's some iron one or some steel ones. There's some that also have this slight kind of how would I put it? This red speckling to it, as if there's some kind of rust in it, but it's doesn't quite seem orange enough to be actual rust.
Rowan would look at that one and he'd say, "What is that red? Is that rust on that weapon?"
No, it's how do I explain it? We work the steel with a certain kind of stone, and for some reason it's able to alloy to the steel to a point. And what we found is this thing will cut through things other swords can't cut through. Sometimes. It's like it can cut through magic, is the best way I could describe it.
That can't come cheap, I assume.
It's a lot more expensive. If you're looking toward the cheaper end, there's solar bronze. Basically, if you hold a light to this thing, it'll shine so brightly it'll drive anything that doesn't like light away. It's basically like extending the light of a torch.
I see.
And then we've got, well, actually, I'm sorry, the last Skysteel one, I think I sold the other day. But I can make another one. It'll take me a few days, though.
He'd give a nod to that. What would be the prices for each of these, respectively?
On the bronze one, a normal bronze one would cost you 10 gold, but with the special treatment we have to do on this, how do I put it? It requires a sanctified wax we can only get from the church, which they don't charge a low price for. So this one ends up being about 30 gold. This one, we actually call it Ember Steel. The Ember Steel is going to cost you about 100. A custom Skysteel one would probably cost you, I could say 55 for it. Because I'd have to be doing the labor on demand.
Right. Rowan would give a nod and he'd say, "Okay, thank you, sir." He clearly he doesn't have like that amount of money on him, but he'd give a nod and say, "Thank you for that information."
I do have one question for the party. You guys got a lot of gold quite a few times along the party or along the way, and I'm wondering if you added it to your gold amounts. Like
I'm bad at
thought I-
remembering. I think
thought
I
I
did,
had.
but I'm not sure.
Not sure either.
Let me open my sheet.
I thought I had, but
because there was money from the face spiders, and I was kind of counting on you guys having a lot more money for being able to do shopping.
We might have neglected some of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably.
I only
He
have
also did-
54 GP.
I have
I had-
19.
I had 58, then I spent 48.
I'm pretty sure I gave you guys 200 and something GP and a couple precious stones.
So how much would that put us each
Well, that
at?
was 200 for the party, right?
That's 200 for the party.
Yeah, which was split 4 ways.
So that means I'd have more like 104.
Okay, for the sake of continuing on, let's say you split the treasure, and we'll say the treasure was 50 GP each, and you each got a ruby worth probably about 40 GP.
All right, so
So 144 or so. Okay. Total, at least now. Okay.
I'm not even. I'm bad at I'm bad at math.
all right. Well, at that rate then that changes things. God just reversed time.
You looked in your coin purse and found it was heavier than you thought it was, but the same interaction had still taken place. If we're not rebooting.
No, I know. So at that rate, he'd sort of look at the blacksmith and sort of and ha for a second. And what have you ever done a cross-smithing of 2 alloys?
Well, not everything takes to each other. I've actually got a complicator. That stupid boy knew it better than me. He's over in Wayward now, though. That kid couldn't smith steel for shit, but if you needed some fancy alloy, he was the one who could make it for you.
I'm more asking, are you to believe that these ember steel and the sky steel could be forged into one weapon?
I've seen it tried, it just doesn't work. At least, it's beyond any of the skills of any of the smiths I know, including myself.
I probably walked into the place by now, and I'm gonna go ahead and pipe in. I'm assuming you're meaning it wouldn't take to forge welding. Is that it?
Well, you see, the thing is, when you make sky steel, you're basically taking, well, it's a blue wood. It comes from sky steel trees up north. I know, original name. But when we make it, instead of using charcoal, we use cubed up pieces of this wood. And the problem with ember steel is that it's a similar process, but we lay in a powdered mineral called ember into the charcoal.
Crucible?
Into the charcoal when we're making our steel.
I had a thought for you. I'm assuming what my compatriot here wants to do is to have the ability of it to cut through magic, as you're referring to it, while also having the quality of, per se, inflicting nastier wounds.
But would that have hurt?
I was gonna say.
I
I'm
was
not sure.
wandering. I'd wandered in soon after him, and I was trying to look at things like see if there was any wire. But he hadn't gotten around to asking yet because he was already busy.
As far as I know, there's no way to combine the two properties, but my crazy ass sex apprentice was always trying. He was always trying weird stuff. The guy tried to alloy bronze with steel. He wasn't exactly the smartest smith, but he was crazy enough to try some things and, monkeys with typewriters, right?
I suppose that phrase could have made its way here, but he shakes his head for a moment. Back onto this topic. Perhaps, depending on how the weapon is constructed, you could have it so that you have layers of it that are mechanically bonded rather than just rather than forge weld.
Rowan would give.
So you
Rowan would sort of look over to Thackeray while he explains this.
So you'd essentially have a leading edge of the stronger material, whichever is going cutting, and then it's nested into a slight widening of the blade that actually contains properties that the other property. I don't know exactly how it would be best to arrange these metals, but you could nest it in such a way, and then have it so that as it cuts through with one, the edge of the other slices in as well. It would mean that it would take quite a bit of force to impart the blow, because you have to drive it deeper, though.
I see two problems. Mechanical complexity, which you
Yes.
don't want to have too much in a weapon you're going to be smacking around like you're... So, there's going to
That
be a
or two
problem
heads.
with it breaking. Also, I'm not sure that you'd have to lead with the Sky Steel, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
'Cause
Either that, or
it would
could make
also
a double-headed
widen the weapon quite considerably, and widening a Bardish is very bad for cutting.
Yes. One more option, though. Perhaps a double-headed weapon. 2 different cutting edges.
I mean, like a double-headed axe.
Yeah. Good work.
Bonding them to the shaft would be the hardest part.
Rowan would look back and forth between the two before saying, "Have you thought of an interchangeable situation?"
Well, you could. So my idea was to give you one of these Bardishes, and I just throw in a longer shaft, so you wouldn't. You see, this thing isn't as long as your halberd, but if we just put it on a longer shaft, it would function about the same as your. I don't know. I don't know what to call that block. Nobody knows what to call pole arms nowadays. The thing on your back.
Lepus.
So that was my idea. If you wanted interchanging heads, it would make it easier for it to fall off because I couldn't shunt it. But if you had a hammer, you could swap them out if you had about 20 minutes.
I shuffle through my satchel and quickly I pull out that piece of little engineering work that I'd made for the interchangeable head system, and I just go ahead and say, I don't know if this suits your particular skill set, but for interchangeable heads that actually lock securely into place, this design could probably work, but I'd say it'd probably drive the price up due to labor.
That would be incredibly complicated, and I'm not used to working on small things other than nails and things like that.
Rowan would
I
look
don't
at
have the
the
fabrication tools.
Rowan would look at the smith and said, "You said there was an ex-apprentice in Waywarn?"
Yeah. Well, shit left and made his own shop because he said he could smith better than me.
Do you happen to know his name?
One sec here. I have to go into my Google Drive. Google Drive is where I keep some of my older NPCs here.
Little name cards would probably be a good idea, and a little card index.
Yeah, his name was Mikkel.
All right. So that is definitely something Rowan's gonna remember. Rowan will give a nod, and he says,
Honestly, when it comes to your price versus effectiveness, I'm going to recommend you the Sky Steel. Ember Steel is great if you're going up against something very specific, but Sky Steel is almost always useful.
Yeah, Rowan will basically he'll basically say that's the one I had my eye on initially. I do have a interest in boistering things as much as possible, though, if you couldn't tell. Sort of motioning to his fairly chiseled physique.
So, what you're saying is you want to be able to deal the most damage you can.
If at all possible.
Well,
The quicker the dangerous thing attacking me goes down, the less time I have to deal with fighting.
if money's not a problem, you're going to be looking at socket steel.
Raises an eyebrow.
You're looking in the budget of your typical sword wanderer, mercenary. You're probably looking at sky steel with a good material for the shaft, and I suppose some minor enchantments might be affordable, but enchanters don't come cheap because they all work for the church, and the church likes my wallet, apparently.
Rowan would give a nod. He'd say, I sort of figured. It's not something I'm looking for at this exact moment. I don't exactly have most enemies or assailants I face usually don't last 2 to 3 hits.
You see as the big guy walks across and he picks up an ingot of this sky steel. And he shows it off and says, well, I have the materials. I could make you the halberd, or do you want a halberd, Barney? You know what? I'm so sick of the young kids arguing over what the fuck these things are called. Do you want a weapon?
Rowan would hand over. He would hand over both his glaive that he has to help with molding the new glaive, and sort of forging it in the way that is similar. And he would then give. You said 55 gold.
Yeah, 55 gold.
So 109 minus 55 is 60 something. 68, I think. No. 63. I think my math's right on that one.
I'm not even sure how much gold I'm supposed to have at this point. Hey, fuck no. It was like, I know the ruby was like worth 40.
Add 90 to whatever you initially had.
Okay.
But Rowan would basically hand that over and say, if you can forge a similar glaive to what you see here, it would be much appreciated. He would you'd probably see sort of a because the weapon more than likely he was given to by whatever I don't know what it would be called, like, I guess band of battle brothers he worked or he was under in terms of like military. It would probably have some kind of emblem. I don't know quite. We haven't gotten as deep into that, but I more or less assume the weapon would have some kind of branding to it.
Okay. So he takes the weapon from you. He has this big, like, ingot of metal, and you see he just nods and he takes the money. he pops it on the counter where you see there's a female dragonborn who is more feminine. That's quite a. I mean, I guess technically she could be more masculine, but I love my way of describing things. There's a more
Sure.
feminine dragonborn there, who is probably his wife. You'd assume if they're both living there. She takes the money and she just puts it into the box behind the counter and starts marking it down in the ledger. He says, "Come back in 2 days, and I'll have your weapon for you."
Rowan says, "Thank you kindly."
No problem. "And what about you?" he says, and he points directly at Thackeray.
Well, what I initially came in here for, a little bit more of supplies for a project. I don't know if you or any of your compatriots work in copper, might you?
Bronze I work with, so I have copper around all the time.
I need copper wire about this gauge, and I'm going to need it in spools that I can use.
Copper what? Like copper thread?
I suppose that would be the word. Basically, it also needs to remain at least fairly ductile.
So that's a very complicated process. I think you'd be looking at a tinkerer for that.
The reason I decided to... normally, when it comes to this stuff, I remember things like this being sold in stores. I've never had to produce it myself. I suppose I'd need to make the tools to it.
Well, you have to produce a filament. And producing a filament is a long and arduous process. And then when you're braiding together 50 filaments, that starts to add up. Because you have to do this process 50 times for one length. So if you make 50 feet, you end up with 1 foot of this wire.
Let's see. What would you happen to have available, or know where I could get the proper tools I'd need to do this? Because I'm still... I admit that tinkering is pretty much my profession. However, I am lacking on certain tools to do this job.
You need a table forge. You probably need some vices. I mean, I have a lot of the equipment. A tinkerer would be a good place to buy some of the equipment.
Is there a local?
There is one. He deals more in basic mechanics. He makes things like those fancy mechanical things that... Adding machine, I think he called it.
Oh, a calculator.
No, a calculator is somebody who does your taxes.
Well, it does arithmetic either way.
It does a what?
Math, addition, subtraction.
Oh, yeah, that too.
That's interesting, if they did this by mechanical means. I'll have to think about that. Normally, I don't remember anything being done with that mechanical, at least in any sort of time frame I'm familiar with. That said, that is a good idea to look at. I will need, because I'm going to need quite a bit, I may as well have a situation where I can actually produce it. In that case, I suppose. Other than that, I may be possibly coming back, as I do need to eventually fill out my workbench here, because I think I am going to be doing a bit of work over at the old theater.
You
I'm
up
going to
there?
be.
That place that's haunted as fuck?
That problem has been resolved. Due to myself and my friend here. I'm going to be working to attempt to restore it.
Oh, that's nice. It's been a long time since I've seen a show there.
Yeah. In fact, one of the reasons I needed the wire is because I'm planning on trying an actual lighting system that will be less prone to accidental fires, such as candles or torches.
I mean, if you need to hang lanterns, why don't you just use a chain?
I'm afraid you misread me. Uh, you might want to just turn away for a second because I don't know how bright this will be. He goes ahead and reproduces the arc light between his fingers. Electricity.
Uh, some kind of magic light?
Yes, but keep in mind, this is more on the same principles that you might see in a thunderstorm.
Oh, so like some kind of storm light?
I suppose you could call it that. But that would certainly be a way. The thing is, you need something to convey the electrical power, and that's where the wire comes in. It's also a reason why you don't wear a suit of heavy armor out in a rainstorm while swinging around a heavy sword above your head while you're the tallest object.
I'm sorry to cut in, but can we just all start calling light bulbs storm bulbs now?
He might end up doing that. But that said, I'm assuming you probably know a few of the craftsmen around town. Do you have the names? Glassmakers, perhaps that tinker you mentioned, as I do need to help improve my tools. And perhaps.
I would recommend going to the local craftsmen's guild.
Ah! So I guess they would have a directory.
Yeah, they have a board.
I will have to do that. If I stay in town long enough, who knows? I might even look in. Thing like that. But I think I deal with things that are a little bit different. Needless to say. But I'll definitely have to keep your shop in mind for tools. I'm assuming you make craftsman tools as well as the lovely implements of death as well, correct?
Yeah, I make everything that you need. I make farming equipment. I make riding tackle. I make nails.
All right.
Hunting gear. Basically anything out of metal.
Okay, I'll have to definitely keep that in mind. So, that said, I must bid you adieu as I need to go ahead and see about that lighting, because after all, if you don't have, even if once the place is cleaned up well enough to start putting on shows and start earning the rest of its repairs, we're going to need light, either way.
Oh, you have a good one.
You too, sir. And with that, he goes ahead and heads out on his way to procure everything he's going to need to turn that workshop into something worth.
Okay, so going over to Spring's perspective.
Sprinkadink.
Yes, I have been called upon.
Yes, so you set off on your horse.
After, presumably, since Thackeray kind of time jumped, so we'll just assume that Spring said his intentions to him, and is currently on his way to Waywarn.
Okay, so along the way, you find a couple other carts that go past you, or a couple carts that, not other carts, but a couple carts that go past you. A couple of them appear religious in nature. there's actually a procession of about 5 horses in a row where you see somebody in some rather fancy armor, followed up by 4 religious um, guardsmen.
Okay.
That's probably the most interesting thing you see along the way, other than the beautiful views along the way.
That I get to enjoy since I'm not being freaking harassed to die.
Do you want a face spider? Is that
No
what you're saying?
thanks. I'm I-
We
I'm
already saw how he likes the spider earlier, didn't we?
I'm good, thanks.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks.
I have one here with your name on it, though.
No, I'm good. I'm Gucci, thanks.
Mm, I don't know. I think you could use one.
I mean, are you seriously gonna have me do a combat encounter by myself?
No. No, you arrive at the crossroads quite peacefully, where you find everything's basically as you left it. Same fire pit. There's still no body of said face spider because it died in the ethereal plane, not on the material
Physical
plane.
plane.
Yeah, so it's not. It didn't die in the material plane, so it's still absent.
I guess. About what time would it be that he arrived at the crossroads?
I'd say that you arrive there probably around the time the sun starts coming down, or starts going down.
Uh, Spring would just go. Spring goes ahead, and dismounts his horse and starts setting up a camp and begins to produce food for both him and his new horse.
Okay, you can do that because of your background, I think, because you're an outlander.
Yes, I am.
So yes, you don't have to worry about food. So you managed to probably scrape together a campfire, get some food, probably cut some old dry grass that works as feed for your horse.
All right, and
Um,
that pretty much probably gonna do it for Spring's side of the story for right now.
Fair enough.
okay, so what are what are you other two going to do for the rest of this day?
So at this point, I'm starting to go ahead and probably realize that the only way I'm really going to get the things I need to do work are by building them myself. So I'm going to go ahead and work to get the materials, and I'm assuming I would have combined with my own kit and the tools of the workshop back at the theater that I can get started on enhancing the workshop to my needs.
So you would probably be able to take your tinker's tools, along with the tinker's tools that are already there, and set them up. You don't have anything like a desk forge or a table forge,
Mm-hmm.
which would probably be quite helpful, but I imagine you could probably think of some ways to make copper wire. Uh, let's just say, um,
Technically, he could probably use his own power to heat and extrude it with things like that, with magic, I guess,
it would take a
or
long
quote unquote
time,
magic.
but I'm going to say that you can probably do magical crafting at this place. The thing is, materials. So, you want to make lights, correct?
Yes. Now, that said, I also was trying to buy the material to attempt constructing the table forge or other things myself,
Okay,
or at least
so
approximations that would suit my purpose.
The lights will require some form of metallic casing, glass, some form of filament, a power source, and something that can act as a resistor to stop it from blowing out the filament.
Yeah. So perhaps ceramics. Okay. So let's see here. For that, I can probably get away with picking out for the reflective surface, probably very thin sheets of that actual bronze. Sounds like it could actually work wonders for that as something as to focus the lights and everything else.
Okay.
And for glass, I'm going to either need glass blowing kit and patience, or commission it.
Okay.
I don't know which you'd consider possible in this case.
Glassblower's kit, you'd probably have to get one. It's probably easier to commission.
So what I'm going to go with is essentially he makes the electrical wiring and the bulb system or whatever, or arc system that goes into it. And it's basically a cup of that bronze with a glass plate in front of it.
Okay. What's producing the light? Is it an arc of electricity or is it like a filament?
Depending on his time, if he takes his time, he's probably going to use a filament.
Okay. So for filaments, I'm gonna say that you could use a very, very thin piece of steel, especially more carbon steel, like very high carbon steel.
Yep. Probably in like a little tab, just pop in and out to replace them.
There's also the possibility of using very thin charcoal, which you can get by making charcoal out of straw,
Yeah.
or something magical, some kind of filament that you could get from a monster.
I'd say steel or metallic, unless you're saying I should weave space spider into it, and I don't know how that would really work out. So I'm going to go ahead and say he comes up with two options for the filaments. Little steel tabs that can be popped in and out, or loops of the spider silk, and he's going to try both as candidates.
You'll have to wait for Kazuma to get back to try the second option, because Spring is currently headed to Wayward.
Yeah.
But I'll say, for the sake of time, you're able to secure what is essentially, you get bronze drinking cups from the blacksmith, and you get him to polish the insides of them with this stuff, like with this special wax to make it shine super bright. And you're able to basically manually drill holes through it in order to fit wiring in. And you use wax to insulate everything.
Okay.
Well, maybe not wax. I don't think Thack would use wax because wax would melt under the heat. So probably something like leather binding everything up.
Leather or maybe parchment as a binding for early wiring as well.
So you use something. Could be a wrap of sinew. Could be a wrap of very thin leather. But you manage to isolate everything so that you don't have power going through the cup. Because the cup is highly conductive because it's made of bronze.
Yep.
So, for the sake of time, you've managed to set everything up. But you need a power source.
So, that said, let's see here. He's more familiar with modern technology and whatnot. That depends on whether the materials for chemical batteries or even rudimentary solar or even what kind of sources do we have? Do we have any water that runs nearby that would be feasible for wiring, or
Sorry.
go ahead? Probably the quote unquote magical solution.
Most likely.
All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and veer.
So, we're
Or
gonna keep going in the order, and we're gonna ask Remy. Do you have anything that you want to do in this time?
After the blacksmith, Rowan would go ahead and he would essentially. He's not looking for anything much after the blacksmith. He's just sort of wandering aimlessly around the market and bumping into whatever odd shops that he can find. Basically being a sightseer at this point.
Okay, so among the shops, you find there's people who are selling nice clothes. There are people selling fish. There are people selling, normal everyday household items. Some of the specialty items that are being passed around are like baked goods or jewelry. There's also a curios area where there's somebody who looks kind of like a random assortment of stuff, but some of it you can tell is inherently magical just by looking overall. There's a couple items that are magical. Like there's like a little green candle that just seems to keep going. There's items that have a soft glow to them.
Rowan would approach this store specifically, seeing the it clearly intriguing him that there was random magical items skewing about.
So the person who's running the store is wearing a mask, and it's kind of a porcelain mask similar to the dolls, but it's a completely different style. And they're wearing like a very fancy coat, and they've got long red hair, and they look, like quite an odd type.
Did they ask me what am I buying? What am I selling?
No. But as you walk up, they just gesture to everything wordlessly, as they believe their merchandise speaks for itself. With a grand flourish of their hands across their many wares. It's a single table that's got tiers to it, and a red cloth over it with rings, and there's glass cases with things inside them, like precious stones. There's a couple like daggers and things, and there's even a sword there.
So, can Rowan gauge from any of this, like, what specifically is magical?
For what you can tell, everything on the table is magical.
Rowan would look at the wordless man and not having a name or anything, he'd just go, "What is that sword about?"
Oh, that's it's an odd case. It's a sword that casts light all on its own. You see, as he picks up the sword, it's definitely a short sword, and as he pulls out the blade, it's got this kind of orange glow to it, and it's bright enough that as he pulls it out, and you see the light kind of flickers a bit. It's almost like it's a torchlight coming from within a sword. But as you see, he runs his hand over the blade, and it's perfectly cool.
You could, like, there's very clear intrigue from Rowan.
You see,
And
these swords are used mainly by the Sepulchre Guard because, well, when you're walking through catacombs and you need to deal with interruptions, you don't want to be stuck with a torch in your hand. But you don't want to be stuck without a torch.
clearly. And how does one? How did you happen to find it in your hand?
Well, let's just say I have my ways. Oh, all of obtained legally, of course, but
Rowan raises a brow at that.
oh, trust me, if I was selling any of this stuff illegally, they'd have my head. You know, there's some tight restrictions on magic around these parts.
Rowan would he'd look over the table again. He'd he'd basically be looking over at all of these items, and he'd look at that candle you talked about earlier.
It's a green candle and it's completely inside of a kind of glass dome. It's got a plinth with a total glass container around it that has a small handle shaped into the top. And it's not going out despite being in there.
So it's just perpetually ignited.
Yes.
So I'm trying to. Basically, Rowan is just like looking over the stuff. You were rattling off some of them. Do you want to like? Because I'm basically trying to see what this person has, but I also want to like streamline it a bit. That way, we're not we're not just going. Oh, what's this? Oh, what's this?
Okay, so do you want some choice picks out of the things that you see there?
Yeah, essentially.
The top row has a lot of these glass containers with kind of a wooden backing to stop them from falling over. You see a perpetually burning candle. One of them has kind of a glowing moth inside of it. Another one has what looks like kind of a a diamond shape, you know, like kind of like a stretched out kind of diamond shape, but it's very rough hewn of some blackened steel, and it's got this perpetual storm that's kind of like a storm in a bottle that's rotating around this small piece of iron. There's also a large container that contains uh, a lot of smaller insects that are glowing like bright green. On the next stage, you've got the lion's share of it is taken up by the sword, but there's also a pair of daggers that are very ornate looking. And the bottom row has a bunch of small, not super expensive looking rings, but one or two of them has a soft glow to whatever gem is in them. But the gems don't look particularly expensive, as they're probably made out of glass or a cheaper mineral.
Rowan would take a look at the glowing rings. What are these?
Oh, there's a couple here. There's a ring that allows you to cast light like a cleric, kind of. This ring here, this one, they say it glows when you find true, uh, your true love. This one right here actually changes colors with your mood.
This, God damn it, he's selling actual mood rings. I hate it. This actually feels like I'm at a festival now. I went to the table with the mood rings. No, Rowan would give a nod. And the daggers?
You see, this one, it's actually made of ember steel, and he pulls it out, and it's a rather old-looking dagger, but it's definitely made out of ember steel. And he sheathes it, and then he goes over to the other one, and he says, and this one, he pulls it out, and it's got this kind of wicked appearance to it. This one is called the Arbor Slayer, because let's just say if you hit anything plant-based with it, it's going to do a lot of damage. It inflicts a horrible blight. I don't recommend using it on any plants that aren't alive, though, or that aren't moving, as it will create blights. He sheathes it.
Rowan thinks back to the fucking twigs that bear hugged Spring.
Stop bringing that up! I don't want to be reminded of being bear hugged by brigands.
And instead of pointing at Spring, they pointed Spring.
And basically Rowan would say, I believe I know someone who would quite enjoy that.
Spring somehow finds a way to telepathically bitch slap Rowan.
No, Rowan would ask, how much for that dagger?
Well, that one, I'd probably ask about 100 gold for that.
Interesting.
Pudding?
Oh, that's
What?
just the music.
That was rhythm.
Okay.
I will bring it back.
Yeah, Rowan would give a nod to that. I'll keep that in mind. Basically Rowan would proceed to more or less he'd glance over the other things for a little while. And before he leaves, he'd ask, how about that candle?
Oh, a perpetual candle?
Yes.
That perpetual candle, it's only 20 GP.
Rowan thinking for a moment. He has an idea, so he's gonna go ahead and hand over 20 GP and back to the inn. Or head back to the not the inn, but the
Theater?
theater. Yes. Thank you.
Okay, so you make it back to the theater uneventfully.
All
So-
right.
He probably sees the interesting activities on display.
So
Yeah,
one thing, we should shift over to Kazuma, because he's also doing stuff.
Yep.
Mhm.
Kazuma.
So, Kazuma,
You
you've
bet.
hit the road again.
Hit the road again.
I just want to make sure that stuff is getting done here. So you've hit the road. Let's say that we just skip over to you getting to Wayworn, because not much has happened along the way.
Hi.
And you arrive back in the town, and everything seems like it's back to normal. It seems like whatever was happening at the tavern has been resolved.
Spring would kind of just lightly strode up to his place and kind of tie his horse up. There would be kind of like a small little stable to the side of the house that has like a feeding area for the horses when his family kept some around before they died.
Before his family died? What?
No,
Or
no,
the
no,
horse?
no. Before the horses died.
Okay, I was so
No,
confused
no,
for a
no,
minute
no, not the family. No. No, their horses died of like old age because they were pretty old horses. And then he would like place some food in the trough for it before walking inside to greet his mother.
So you see this woman. She's a husky, and she's got a typical kind of medieval-looking outfit on. A lot more rough than the people over in Mistaken Village, because this place is a little more rougher. It's a little more in the quote unquote boonies than the other town.
Just the way I like it. Hey mom.
Oh, hey. Oh, you're home. Do you need anything? I can make your favorite.
That would be fantastic. Well, the food at the shop or at the temple was great. Little too highbrow for my tastes. I miss the simplicities of home.
Well, you know what I've always told you? That fancy stuff doesn't stick to your ribs.
You're not wrong. It went through me. How's Dad doing?
So, he's been out for a while. You know how he is, Wanderlust.
Yeah, sounds like typical old Dad.
I mean, you're no different. You vanished off to the temple and didn't come back for quite a long while. I was expecting you back a week ago.
Uh,
Then again, I always kind of hope that you come home the next day.
sorry. Our guide to the temple ended up receiving a job to clear out some kind of haunting at the old theater in Mistaken Village, and turned out it was a poltergeist.
Oh, that's interesting. But I have to ask the most important question. Did you find a girl while you were out?
No. Is that really appropriate to ask of me, Mother?
I mean, I'm not exactly getting any younger, and I would like to have grandkids at some point.
I, I've been doing jobs. I've been a little too busy to find a lady. I guess. I know you're not getting any younger, but these things take time, Mother. Spring would look entirely flustered, and thrown off by the question. Needless to say.
She just kind of has her hands on her hips as she looks at you.
What?
You know, at least Rickard was dating the blacksmith for a while.
Are you seriously gonna compare me to him?
I mean, Rickard might be a little bit dumb, but at least he's,
Oh,
trying.
Ricker's flippin' stupid, Mom. You know this. I can't believe you're comparing me to him. That hurts. And it's not like I'm not trying. I'm just busy. I'm sorry, but it's not like I could be like, hey guys, I'm gonna like sneak off and try to find a fucking girlfriend while we're in the middle of trying to get Leo some help.
I'm just saying the least you could do is try.
Spring just kind of like rubs the bridge of his muzzle and then just. I will try to see if I could find someone. I will try, Mother.
That's all I'm asking. Now do me a favor and go outside and chop some firewood for dinner.
Yes, Mom.
Okay. Is there anything else you wanted to do while you're in Well, you probably arrived there right before night, so we'll say that your mom makes you a shepherd's pie. Or we'll call it a sheppy's pie because it's for you.
Okay. Uh, all in the meanwhile, Spring's just like thinking in his head, "Mom can't know I'm gay. Mom can't know I'm gay. Mom can't know I'm gay."
So
That
also
just makes
that
it
night,
funnier.
somebody rocks on up to the inn where Rowan's staying and knocks on his door.
Knockety knockety.
Oh, Remy's currently muted.
Remy!
Sorry, I was being. What's up?
So it's now the second night, and somebody has knocked on your door after dinner time.
Rowan would go answer the door. Who is it?
So you see the Iron Dragon there, who's got a rather large, like, cloth sack. It's kind of orange in color, and it appears to have some kind of weapon in it.
Ah,
It's
see,
finally done.
I see you finished my commission.
Now let me just drop this image in so that I can show it. So I need to upload this image. Okay, I think it's uploaded now. Yes. Now I need to make it. It's really stupid to be able to show things. I have to make a handout, and then I have to stick this in it. There we go. So it changes. And does that make it show up for you guys?
Yep, I see it.
I'd say so.
That's your new glaive.
Ooh,
Okay.
pretty.
Very nice.
It's pretty.
So it's a typical Bardish. It, as he lays it out on the table for you, and he pulls um, the cloth back. He goes, "Well, I knew you probably wouldn't want something like a normal Bardish. I can see you have a particular taste in weapons, so I tried to incorporate that at least a little bit. It looked like the back of your blade kind of had a space to catch weapons. Well, I'm not too good at making kind of an edged spear like that, so I went ahead and put a sword catcher on the back. So all you got to do is flip your weapon around, and you can catch somebody's blade and just kind of throw it away because you'll have much more leverage with them with a handle this big. Also, on the bottom of the blade, I threw in a small notch here because, well, that's a little bit dirty to put on a weapon, but you seem like the kind of person who'd want that. You see, if that catches somebody, the way this thing makes you bleed, that's going to go in, and that's going to cause a lot of damage."
Rowan gives a nod and looks over the weapon before nodding and saying, "Thank you. I do appreciate your handiwork."
No problem. So if you want to add your Skysteel Glaive to your inventory,
How do I do that?
um,
Do I just add that to one of my weapons?
So you gave him your glaive.
Yeah.
So you could literally just overwrite your glaive and just change it to a sky steel glaive.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. So you'll just have to give me that information.
Okay, so here's exactly what the glaive does.
Okay.
If you crit, you inflict bleed. If you roll a 7 on any of your damage dice, you inflict bleed.
Okay. And is that so? Is it? But is it basically the same? Damage values 1d10 plus 3.
Yeah, it's exactly. But if that, sorry, it should be any of your damage dice. If that 1d10 or either of the d10s from a crit, but it wouldn't matter. So if that 1d10 lands on a 7, you inflict bleed.
All right, and uh, hmm.
Oh, and bleeding, by the way, is a Constitution save of DC 13 at the end of their turns, or they lose 3 hit points. Beating DC 18 ends the condition, and it only lasts a certain number of turns. Medicine checks or magical healing will stop the bleeding, though.
Okay. I don't know where to put this bleed effect situation.
We can write it in the description. Oh, I was putting in the description there. One sec, I'll just type it in there. There, I've entered it in there.
Alrighty.
Description. I wonder if it'll say the description if you use the attack, so I'm just gonna pop the attack in. Yes. So it has a reminder there.
All right. Did it get
Roll
rid
your
of the other
ability
part of
dice.
that? It says, yeah, I got rid of the other part where it was saying, I think the only thing we should just do is it would just be reach, right?
Yes.
There we go. Just a test. All right. Okay. Yeah, so Rowan would thank the blacksmith, and once they parted ways, Rowan would essentially just start he'd actually take the candle that he purchased from the rather odd fellow earlier,
Yeah.
and he would go find his way to Thackeray.
Okay.
I'm probably still at the theater starting to integrate some of that lighting so that it can cast the most light possible where it needs to go.
And once he got to Thackeray, Rowan would basically produce the light. Like he would uh pull it out and say, "You said you were looking for light sources, so I came across a rather perplexing candle that seems to not go."
He probably would be coming in as Thackeray is managing to wire up one of the lights, and ends up going ahead and briefly connecting himself to it to try to power it, and ends up flashing it in his face and falling over,
Oh,
rolling
yikes.
back on the stage a bit. Like, like, memo, don't aim light at face when pulling full power. and he looks up over it and goes like, blinking a bit. What is it? What do you got?
Again, he would just sort of walk over to Thackeray and say, I found this perplexing light that I know I had overheard you saying you had been looking for light, so I had purchased this light that seems to not go out.
That seems pretty neat. I guess examination of it I might be able to too. We do what I've been doing here is predominantly for the stage and the main lights that are going to keep the building lit at all times during non-performances when it's active. But something that could be put on tables during a show and not emit light that would distract from the performance would also be excellent. So that could be an awesome thing to add.
Upon any investigation of the candle, which is red in color,
Yeah.
it does have a mark stamped into the wax that looks like the merchant's mask. The best way to explain the mask is, you know the Grecian theater masks?
Yeah.
It looks like the joyful one.
Uh-huh.
So bearded, kind of like Mask of the Father from...
So a maker's mark, essentially.
Yeah.
Huh. Interesting. Wonder if this might be the... was the person wearing a mask or something like a trademark similar to this?
Rowan nods to that. Yes, they were.
It's probably their maker's mark, I guess, at that point. Let's see. It's interesting. I'm not quite sure how it works. Though, theoretically, setting up any sort of light like that is possible. I don't think I'd really even have to look at it to do that. I'd recommend holding on to that, but you've given me an idea.
When Rowan would actually hold his hand up and say, it's yours. I don't have much use for it, seeing as most times in the dark I can see just...
Well, that's when it comes to a slight problem. I try to conduct myself with integrity on most things. I don't have even if I'd be producing them only for myself, I don't necessarily have the permissions to reverse engineer someone else's creation in such a manner. So it would be impolite of me to do so.
Oh, no,
So
I wasn't asking you to do that. I was merely giving it to you as a potential further light source for...
But that said, even having it in my possession could hint that I actually had potentially done so, even if I arrived on the solution myself. So, as much as I appreciate the gesture, I must decline in this case. Unless I were to purchase them solely from this merchant.
Rowan would give a bit of a shrug, and essentially just sets it on one of the tables in the theater. He clearly doesn't care. He's like, yes, that's fine. It'll be a gift for the theater then.
I go ahead and basically just later leave it in the tavern. Later
I will
on.
say that after this exchange, the doll who'd been watching from like way up, like around the ceiling area, kind of floats down and gently puts it on top of the piano.
I can't win with you people.
Hey,
I'm making my own then.
she likes having a candle on the piano, and she has to keep replacing them.
I can make you one. And the thing is, I don't want to be called a copy or things like that. That's why I'm trying to quote unquote get rid of it.
Are you talking to Rowan or are you talking to the doll?
Talking to both of them.
Well, I mean, at this point, Rowan doesn't understand or care. He's
Let's
just
just
trying to
say
give.
that
He is trying to give a gift, and he also really doesn't want to be carrying around a fucking candle.
let's just
He legitimately
say
just did it to try and be nice, and having it spat back at him, he's more or less just like, okay, whatever.
I'm just imagining. I need to draw just Rowan trying to give Thackeray this candle, and Thackeray being like, "No, I'm sorry, I must decline." And Rowan's just like, just
oh god.
as he stares at him.
Freaking dork.
So the doll kind of floats down, or like floats towards Stack, and goes, "Well, I mean, have you considered asking the person who made these how they made them?"
Well, it's not that I believe I couldn't make it myself. Here's the thing. When it comes to I like to have creative integrity. Let's
How do I put this? You've made so many incredible things since you've been here. He's made something incredible. Why don't you trade?
So you're saying maybe you'll light up his stall in a similar way that I did with the theater in exchange for him lighting our tables?
I mean, it makes sense. I was taught, you scratch my back, I scratch yours.
Well, perhaps it would be a good way to establish relationships with the merchants here.
Also cuts in and says, "I did technically pay him for the light."
Well, it's only one light.
Hold on, I'm interjecting real quick. Chat, you can all fucking bite me for that.
What is it? What'd they do now?
What's going on?
Freyar, you could be though if you applied yourself / Spring's mother.
God. No, Rowan, Rowan just reminding that essentially he paid to just get a light. That's it.
Let's go over to Spring's perspective. He's been absolutely filled with the most decadent of shepherd's pie in the entire world. And has slept and has woken up the next day. One thing though, near the start of the day, you hear a bang on the door that sounds like a wooden object being used to knock on the door.
Spring would groan, rubbing his eyes as he woke up, placing his glasses back upon his snout, and answering the front door. Who is it?
That's when you see somebody who you haven't seen in a really long time. There's a wolf outside the door with a pair of crutches, and his leg is bound up. And you see it's Rickard, your best friend.
Hello, Rickard. How are you doing?
Oh, good, other than the fact, my leg's fucking broken. How are you doing, David?
I'm fine. And how did you break your leg? Were you doing dumb shit again?
Remember, he fell down a well when you guys were training.
Oh, right.
You guys were sparring, he fell down a well, broke his leg.
Oh, right. That happened. Seems like forever ago. So, how goes you and the blacksmith's daughter?
A blacksmith's daughter?
Or the blacksmith?
You know we broke up.
Oh fuck, where the hell have I been? Oh right, off doing things.
I thought I broke up 5 weeks ago. You see, he gently puts his crutches down. He's standing on one leg as he grabs you and puts you in a headlock and like noogies your hair.
Just stop! Spring just like pulls himself away. He's like, what the fuck? We're not 5 anymore!
Ricker's like flails as he tries to get his balance and puts his hands on like the door frame and picks his crutches back up and starts using them again.
Anyways, what can I do? What can I do you for?
I haven't
Obviously, you've
seen
had
my
to.
best friend in 2 fucking weeks. Why do you think I'm here?
I've been off on a bit of an adventure. I took Leo up to the temple to hopefully get his situation better taken care of, but I don't think we're gonna get Leo back.
Why? What? What's up with him? I just heard he went crazy and stole a bunch of stuff and ran into the woods. I would have gone with you, but, well,
Let's just say his condition is worse than we thought.
how so?
Spring would look around to make sure that his dad's nowhere within earshot or visible distance. Here, come inside. It'll be better if we talk inside. Away from prying eyes and ears.
Yeah, Rickard just comes in as if there's, it's perfectly normal and sits down on a couch inside the house. Kind of main living area of the house.
Spring would begin to recount all of the things that have transpired within the past few weeks to bring Rickard up to speed with what's been happening with him.
So what you're telling me is, you fought a scarecrow, stayed in the temple itself, in the lap of luxury, and then you fought, you befriended a poltergeist?
Yeah, more or less. Wait,
Oh shit.
Did
I wish
you
my
say-
leg wasn't broken.
wait. Did you seriously tune out the part where I fought a fucking phase spider?
Oh yeah, I always knew you were a wimp about spiders. It didn't seem any different than normal.
Motherfucker, I killed it!
Yeah, but I would have killed it faster, so he shrugs.
Boy!
Bring
I wouldn't have let it run
weenie.
circles around me like some kind of fool.
Okay, yeah, let's see you kill something that's on an entirely separate plane of fucking existence, you stupid bitch. I
No
would
plane
love
can
to
stop me
fucking
from
see it.
squashing a spider. It's a spider.
It's a spider that can go into another plane of fucking existence that you cannot attack.
Don't tell me what I can't do.
Oh my god, why do I put up with you sometimes? Oh, and you wonder why you're the one that ended up in the well.
Hey, it's not my fault. Someone put a cat in my way, and I tripped.
There wasn't a cat within 6 meters of you! You fucking tripped over a bucket and ended up in the well with your broken leg. Because you don't pay attention! That's why I win a majority of our spars, because you go in blindly.
Yeah, but you couldn't hit the broadside of a barn, so I think that makes us even.
The moment your leg gets better, I'm putting you in your fucking place once and fucking for all.
So, in other news, he kind of like looks down for a moment, and he seems to be kind of awkward.
What's on your mind?
He just lets out kind of a deep breath as he seems like he's thinking.
Spring gently places his hand, or his paw on Rickard's shoulder. Come on, I know you've got a secret you've been wanting to tell me. You know, you've always been a poor liar and terrible at hiding shit from me ever since we were young.
Marco says I might have a permanent limp.
Yeah, okay.
Which means no gallivanting around the forest. I'm looking at using a cane for the rest of my life.
And that bothers you?
Well, it means there's no Spring and Rickard anymore, gallivanting around the woods. I'm just gonna be here while you're off exploring temples and meeting ghosts and squashing little itty bitty spiders.
This spider isn't tiny. Well, I need to head back to Mistaken Village. It's only a... I could take you to the temple and seeing if there's something that they might be able to do to help.
There's no way they'd let me in.
Spring would produce a piece of parchment from his knapsack. It would be the entry permit that he was given, that he and the party were given upon leaving the temple. By yourself, no, but with this, you can get in.
You really do that for me?
Dude, we've been friends for how long?
I mean, if Marco can't see a way to fix my leg, do you think they're going to be able to?
Hey, any avenue is worth taking if there's a chance.
You're probably going to tell me what the old confessor always tells me. I just have to pray and then all my problems will go away.
Oh, please, bitch. When the fuck have I ever prayed in my life? You know this.
I don't know, I see you on your knees pretty often.
Okay, this is out of character, but man, the snarks I want to give. Oh, the snarks I want to give, but your restrictions on it have... I could go full-on sexual with this, but you don't want to let me. Ooh. Oh. Oh. Okay. Just this once. Can I have one? Can I have just one?
Okay.
Bruh. If you think I'm the one on my... I can tell, for a matter of fact, I know you've dreamed of having my dick up your ass.
We all know you see me in your dreams. That's why you have to change your sheets all the time.
Oh, bitch, please! The amount of times you've changed your sheets. Yeah, we're gonna
Okay,
have
that's
some
enough,
serious
guys.
conversations on that one later. Besides, we all know I'm bigger than you anyways. He mumbles that under his breath.
All we need to do is get Kazuma Fox to play the character.
Anyways, so, but I have some business around town I do need to take care of, especially I do need to get a new saddle for my horse. But if you want to try, I'm willing to take you. It's about a day out of my way from where I'm going, but if you want to go, then I can take you.
Well, I definitely appreciate it.
Well, if you want to go, I'm not gonna be sticking around town for long. I plan on leaving probably here by noonish. So if you want to go, I would suggest getting back to your house, getting what you need, and getting ready to go. I'm gonna go talk and see about seeing if we have a nice saddle that's lying around, and potentially seeing if I can get one of the carpenters to come and assist with the project that me and the party are working on.
Sent
Lepis!
the wrong person. Was sending that to Morgan's, who was inquiring about what he could do here.
Bruh.
Accidentally sent my reply to Remy.
Ah! Well, I already poked Kazuma about it too.
Did I just say cute light wounds?
Yes, you did.
It's not even cure light wounds in this game. It's just cure wounds. So, Rickard agrees, and he slowly, pulls himself up, and you see, he puts both of his crutches in one arm, using one to kind of prop himself up, and he just pulls Spring close and just hugs him with one arm.
Spring returns the hug.
And also, by the way, Rickard is about 6'7". So he's 6 inches taller than you.
Oh, well then. Still doesn't change the facts.
He's just gonna give you a big old hug. He's gonna pat your back, and then he's gonna take his crutches and nod and start walking back to his house.
Spring heads over to the guardhouse to. Oh my god, I forget all the names now.
Yeah, there's so much because it's been a while between sessions.
Yeah. I think it was Richard. Was the head guard there?
I really don't remember.
Fuck it, we'll just say he's Richard.
Okay.
He heads to the guardhouse to see if Richard.
So Spring is heading out to find Dick. I mean, Richard.
Penis. Spring likes to play with it. Anyway.
Richard, you around?
You see, the guard captain is out front. He's talking to a couple of guards because there's probably about 5 guards in this town now. It used to be about 4. There's definitely a new guy there who, after talking to him, starts jogging his way up the hill. And the head guard just waves at you.
Hey, Richard, been a little bit.
Yeah, I haven't seen you in town. It's been nice and peaceful here without you.
Gee, thanks, Richard. It's nice to know I'm such a troublemaker, even though I've helped the guards out numerous times with dangers from the forest.
Well, my job's been a lot easier recently with you out of town and Rickard off his feet.
Yeah, okay. Hey, do we happen to have a spare saddle lying around somewhere I could use?
Probably in the storehouse.
Awesome. I recently acquired a new horse for personal travels, and let's just say the saddle it came with wasn't exactly the greatest.
I mean, you're mayor's pet. You could probably just put it down in the ledger that you took it and he wouldn't care.
Spring,
Blippus!
Spring just kind of grunts at that. You almost make it seem like I'm the favorite around here.
I mean, you're helpful. You're smarter than Rickard. You're helpful and you're smarter than Rickard. That's the best way to put it.
You know, by the way, you know he tried to say that someone put a cat in his way during our spar when he fell in the, well?
I mean, it kind of was a cat. What he doesn't, mention is that it was, a person cat and not something knee high at most, ankle high.
Needless to say, I'm going to be taking him with me out of town.
That's fine.
Uh,
Also, poor Tor. Everyone talks about what happened to Rickard, but Tor got bowled over by that.
yeah. How's she doing, by the way?
Tor is the innkeeper.
Or how's Tor doing?
Oh, the way Tor always is. He's sad about something, but he's secretly happy he's got his daughter there.
Oh, speaking of his daughter, did she recover?
Yeah, Marco and Timora managed to help her out.
Ugh, that's good to hear. Well, I'm gonna go talk with Morty, the carpenter. Me and the rest of the guys that I was with were working on a project back in Mistaken Village. We're gonna try to restore that old theater. Come to find out, it was haunted by a poltergeist.
Oh, just like the storybooks, huh?
Yeah, except unlike the storybooks, this one wasn't very mean and wasn't very evil. Just really wants to perform. So we're figuring build up the place, get it back up to snuff, and we can start hosting shows there.
Are you saying that you left, and your excuse for why you were gone so long is a singing ghost?
No, that just happened along the way. I mean, I could tell you about the face spider I killed up in the crossroads.
Are you talking an actual spider or a face spider?
Face spider.
You always exaggerate about spiders. It wasn't just a big spider. It was.
No, this one was one that could literally shift planes between both the ethereal and physical planes.
Now you said that once when there was a spider that you saw and then you went to squish it and then it wasn't there anymore. Like actually, space spider.
Yes. Jesus Christ, my lord! I swear, you people always give me shit about something.
Who is this Jesus Christ guy? Why are you always talking about him?
He got you there.
Sorry, phrase of expression, not an actual person. Anyways, I'm gonna take Rickard up to the I'm gonna take him up to the temple and see if maybe something they can do about his leg, and maybe not have him have some kind of permanent limp, so he
Well,
can at
don't take
least.
him to the cleansing ceremony. That is never worth it.
Ugh, God, I
Ah.
I saw one of those. Trust me, I cringed. Although if
What's even worse, you're not allowed to be a guard on the island unless you go through it.
uh, I know.
Uh,
That's why I never became a guard and I just kind of freelance worked with you guys. Anyways, but it can't be nearly as bad as the bathhouse apparently. Remember Kib?
Yeah,
Apparently
Lover
he went to the bathhouse and he came out looking like he had seen a ghost.
You know, it doesn't surprise me. He was always a bit of the, how do I put it? Guys like him never get through the initiation. I'll just put it that way.
Well, I'm gonna take this saddle. I will let the mayor personally know since I have to go past his tower anyways. I'm pretty sure he's gonna want to know what happened to Leo since I'm back in town. So I gotta make a few extra stops and then start hitting the road. So it was great to see you again, Richard.
He's just gonna nod his head and go back to his business, guarding the road because there's not a lot of stuff to guard from usually.
Yes. I guess next stop's just gonna be the mayor's house. And for brevity's sake, he catches the mayor up on what has transpired the last week.
Okay, so we could do your business stuff quickly unless there's something specific that you want to like talk to an NPC for.
Nope.
Okay, so what were you looking to do for business in town before you leave? Talking to the mayor.
He talked to the mayor. Explained project to the carpenter, see if he could get him on board, and then pretty much just goes from there.
Apparently, okay, so the carpenter tells you that in a couple days he'll be able to send somebody out to look and assess the situation.
Fair enough. Spring pretty much finishes up the rest of his stuff and takes the old saddle off, puts the new saddle on, says goodbye to his mom, and then promptly leaves with Rickard.
As you're leaving with Rickard, your mom just waves at you and says, "Goodbye! Come back soon! Bring a girl!"
Spring just kind of groans at that one, and then just taps on his horse sides to get moving.
the girl is Rickard in a dress.
No. I mean, Rickard's just gonna like pat you on the shoulder and be like, "Don't worry. I'm not getting any younger." Apparently says prayer. Prayer. I want to make her sound like some old like black lung, like coal lung Englishman. I ain't getting any younger. Bring me grandchild.
Anyways, let's move back to the others. My business is now concluded.
Okay, so moving back to Wardens, what is Stack doing? We left off. He got the suggestion of possibly visiting the merchant who sold the candle.
Yeah.
There's also trying to find whatever you can to power those lights.
Yep, you haven't really gone into a thing about what I'm having to pay for all this.
So we'll say that you're producing 2 strong lights, which is all you'd really need for spotlights.
Mm-hmm.
And they're costing you 50 GP to get the 2 of them. You'll probably be able to make more as you get more experienced for less materials.
Mm-hmm.
But that would require your proficiency bonus going up.
Freyr
Which
just
your
popped in.
proficiency bonus is currently +2.
What,
There,
Freyr?
there are 4 lights as a Star Trek reference.
Oh. I don't get it.
It's
Okay.
Captain Picard screaming that in an episode. So, basically, you manage... It takes 1 work week to make these things, but that work week is assuming you're also doing other things.
Yep.
I think.
Like, probably even going to the merchant and probably gonna bring it once if I can locate him, that is, and say, so a friend of mine ended up purchasing one of your candles. I was thinking that I'm currently in need of lighting for tables at the theater, and these seem like they would fit the bill.
Oh, these are... you see, he says that, and then he kind of like readjusts himself, and then like swishes his hands over the merchandise and goes, "Oh, my fine candles, the finest you can get."
Yes, lovely little enchantment that I have on them. That said, I would need enough for how many tables are at the theater?
I can actually go and count them for consistency's sake. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So you need 12 candles.
Mm-hmm. So, I have about 12 tables that I need lit.
Well, if you buy a lot of these, I'd probably give you a discount on them.
Ah, interesting. I'm also working on another kind of lighting myself, that might be looking to market eventually as well. Uses electricity. Basically, you're familiar with lightning, right?
Oh, like this? And you see he points to his storm in a bottle.
Ah, yes, like that.
You see, this is a piece of, well, it's an ancient artifact that comes from back when we had contact with the sky civilization.
Can't say I've seen any floating cities or anything. I'll take your word for it.
Yes, we lost contact with them several thousand years ago. They were only in contact with us for a short time, but they gave us some of the most amazing things, like sky steel. These fine artifacts are. This is what they used for a lot of their enchantments. Now, they would be destroyed when used, but when left intact, they create these lovely storms in a bottle. But you have to be very careful with them because they're always charged, so if you put them in a container made of metal and you touch it, well, you're going to get a nasty shock.
That's why you always need an insulator.
That's why this entire apparatus is made of glass. It won't allow any of the lightning out of the bottle, so to speak.
Glass is a superb insulator, so it would be able to do that quite well.
He picks up this apparatus. It's like a large glass bottle, with a glass stopper in the top, and it's just kind of like a very jagged shard of metal. that's got little crackles of lightning spreading out to this swirling clouds around it. And it really does look like a miniature storm in a bottle.
I don't think I'm quite understanding the description.
So it's a glass bottle, probably about the size of your typical pop bottle, with a glass stopper. And it's got, in the very center of it, is floating a shard of steel that has miniature storm clouds swirling around it, and it's got lightning arcing between itself and the little clouds. And occasionally the lightning builds up strong enough that it strikes the edge of the glass, but dissipates the moment it hits the glass.
Lovely material. That would be something I would love to end up researching. Seems a little bit different than the kind of power sources I'm used to for electricity, though.
Well, where did you get electricity other than lightning?
Chemical reactions. Alchemy, you might refer to it.
Oh, alchemy.
Yeah.
How do you create lightning with alchemy?
Okay. I'm because I don't want to drag on forever. He's just going to go with a basic idea. The most basic explanation of basically metals and acids.
So what you're saying is a condensed vinegar in some kind of jar with a piece of steel and a piece of copper in it, is what you're saying, makes lightning.
Well, it depends on the scale you're going with, and you often need a way to charge it up first, in other words, to reverse the reaction, so that it can output power again.
Well, color me incredulous, I would like to hear more, but let's talk business.
Indeed. So,
he pulls out a pair of cigar boxes as you're speaking. So, continue on.
Alright, so, currently, I'm in need of a way to go ahead and power the lighting system of the theater, so that it can begin doing performances once again. Ideally, I'm looking for a simple way to start before I can start working on different ways of power generation which may be able to support a better setup for it. However, I'm in the need of something that'll get the job done sooner rather than later, as I'm still building everything up I need to have a workshop again.
So as you're speaking, he opens the 2 cigar boxes, and each of them has 6 candles in them.
Mm-hmm.
And these candles, unlike the other one, are all kind of a dark blue in color.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, these candles burn with a more normal light. Kind of an orange-yellow. It's a little bit more reddish than your typical candle, but most people can't tell the difference unless they look at it for a while.
That's good.
One of these candles I sell for about 10 gold. But for a box of 6, I could do 50.
That might be a possibility. I have more interest in the storm in the bottle, technically. Though the candles are definitely an interest.
How about this? I'll give you the storm in the bottle if you show me all of your prototypes and all of your diagrams.
The diagrams, we may have to make an arrangement. But I'd be willing to show you the basic operation, of course. After all, why not see what it's going towards?
I feel like there could be some collaboration here. How about I teach you how to make these candles in exchange as well?
We might be able to come to an arrangement about that. Currently, I am working to establish myself with my own shop here, and I'm never averse to getting to know the people around here that I'll be potentially working with. After all, it's great to diversify one's production, and, of course, spread things around a bit.
Here's one great point of business for us. I have many sources for strange objects. I'm always looking around estates and auctions, old warehouses. I'm always looking for something interesting.
Ah,
There's a lot of things I could procure you that other merchants would have no idea where to find.
a caretaker of curio, then.
Yes, you could say this is a passion of mine.
Well, there's always wonders to find, aren't there?
You could say I'm a passing collector, and by that I mean I collect something and then I pass it along for someone else. I have a book of all the strange things I've ever owned. Part of
That's
the
quite
joy of
interesting.
collecting them is letting someone else discover something interesting.
Indeed. Might give me a lot of research projects for sure. So,
Yes,
that
I see
said,
you walking around town with some strange companions. I'd
ah,
also be interested to hear about them. Metal people?
indeed. A quick question. Has he indeed noticed Zachary's own nature by now? Or no?
No. I'd say that a lot of people would have to give you a close inspection to figure it out.
Especially considering he moves normally.
Yeah, he moves very normally, and if you're not, like, examining, like, touching him, it looks like he has fur. Yeah, I think you
Mhm.
described. It's got, like, this fuzziness around all of his edges where it looks kind of like fur.
Yep.
I'd say that'd fool most people, unless they gave you a very close inspection.
All right. So, let's go ahead. Are you currently needing to keep your shop open for the time being? Are you free to come and see what I'm setting up?
Well, I'd have to close up shop for the day, but I think we have an interesting possibility here.
Sure, by all means. Also,
So,
I'd like to get to know a few other merchants. Well, I'm going to need to set up suppliers and everything else. And it always is good to get to know one's neighbors. By the way, I didn't catch your name.
oh, me? Uh, I'm afraid I forgot it when I got here.
Well, you must have adopted a new title.
Uh, a lot of people just call me merchant.
I suppose that one would become quite the moniker over time, would it not?
Yes,
I'm
well,
Thackeray.
nobody knows what to call me usually.
Fair enough. Let's see here. Let's go ahead and go then.
So he taps the top of his table as you turn to walk away, and he says something very quietly under his breath, and you see as like flaps come up from under the table and cover everything, and the whole thing seems to shrink down to a box about the size of a footlocker, and the table legs start moving and animating, and this thing starts following him like a dog.
The fucking luggage! I know exactly what inspired that shit.
Wait, what?
You
The luggage
essentially,
from Discworld.
actually,
No.
I was thinking of the luggage from the Sword in the Stone.
Close enough. Where do you
I
think he
haven't
brought
seen
the
the Sword in the
godly?
Stone in years, and I've never read Discworld, so
Let's just say giant chest made of quote unquote sapient pear wood. It's basically a luggage that carries everything you need and will violently assault people who try to attack its master.
yeah, it's basically a wooden footlocker with the mask emblem on the top and animated wooden legs that don't have joints or anything. They just move like they bend and stuff. Like they bend as if they were soft.
Mm-hmm.
And this thing just like trots after him, and it sounds like there's like a small horse like walking behind him because it's got little wooden feet.
Yeah. If you upsize that thing and add a seat on it, you'll have quite the conveyance.
Oh, I'm afraid the larger you make these things, the less friendly they get.
Really? That's an
Yes, have you
interesting
ever been
thought.
trapped inside a chest for a week? It's not fun.
I've heard tell of people who run into situations like that.
I guess you could call it a slightly more friendly mimic.
That is an interesting thought.
Well, I came up with the idea when I was attacked by a mimic.
Just
No wonder
decided
I
to
still
keep it
have
a
my
little bit.
skin.
Just decided to get it a bit more of a comfortable size, I guess.
Yes. The thing about a mimic is its only weakness is dust, which you must leave it in.
Yes, in other words, don't disturb it. Doesn't strike me as the
In here,
smartest idea. But they go ahead and I'm
because it's
imagining
almost 8 p.m. for me.
time. You want to wrap it up?
Yeah, I do kind of want to wrap it up in the next few minutes.
All right. Let's assume
So
that. Go ahead.
next session we can start out with you finishing up your stuff in the theater. Spring getting home. We'll give Remy some time to do any other shopping he wants to do. And KTP will also have the option to do any shopping before I allow you to continue in any way you see fit with the story.
Sure.
Just to say, I'm pretty sure Rowan is basically done right now with most of his shopping. He's
Do you,
also exhausted most funds.
okay. You can look for work in some of the time that you have down.
Mhm.
Like I'm pretty sure a giant buff bear could probably find some form of work in this town,
Like a warehouse.
or being a bouncer, or
Bouncy, bouncy, bouncy.
okay. So let's wrap it up here for now
Yeet.
because we've gone for about 3 hours.
Let's see here. XSplit, where
Lepus.
are you? Yep, about 3 hours. It's been 2 hours, 47 minutes, and about two hours, 48 minutes.
Okay.
Okay, so let's cut it here for now, and then we'll finish up the rest of our downtime next session, and then you guys can decide where you want to go from there.
All right. Well, I
Because I can see a couple different things you guys might want to do to advance the plot.
okay. So go ahead and throw up the ending panel.
I
Me.
would like to give a special thanks to Bit Symphony for a lot of the music that we use.
Oh my lord.
I'd also like to give a thank you to Yuki Deer for doing our overlay.
That doesn't exist right now, by the way. Two of them are missing.
Oh no.
Two of them are missing. This is like I said, forgive me. This was a rush job that I kind of fucked up.
It's fine, it's fine. Your entire computer went down.
My entire computer decided my Windows decided it wanted to throw a fit.
Windows go boom.
Feel free to continue now.
So, a special thanks to Remy for being absolutely precious. Come on,
No.
Remy. You're fresh. A special thanks to Lorgans for being fabulous. A special thanks to Kazuma for being cute as hell.
Lies.
Our contract says you can't deny it to me.
Damn it. Okay, fine.
Okay. And you're allowed to call me cute too, but nobody else.
You're cute.
A special thanks to King Trash Panda for being the sweetest little trash panda I ever did meet. I'm hoping that he'll be here next week.
Wonder where he went.
And a big thank you to everyone else who's been involved in this project. We are hoping to get somebody new or to have somebody return, hopefully in the next few weeks. We'll see how things go.
Fingers crossed.
Yeet.
So I think that's all of our thank yous that we need.
Yes. Unless
The
there's something else
Bleppis.
you have to add.
Does anybody have any other thank yous to add or any other shout outs?
Rango Dur.
Well, I'm just gonna say thank you to T for bringing this awesome party together. And I also want to thank her a lot for entrusting me with the production side of things, even though I have flopped a handful of times because because her Windows goes dirt. But yeah, other than that, I got nothing else to add.
I'd also like to give a shout out to my boy Koi. He's awesome. I think we should shout out a streamer every session. And maybe trade off who gets to shout somebody out.
Okay.
Eh.
I'm a shout out Koi Boy. He's adorable.
Bleppis.
Okay.
Okay.
I was gonna say the only thing I really have to. This is just a formal, or I don't know what it is, formal or informal. This is basically just me inviting T, Kazuma, Lorgans, anybody really. I am having a sort of birthday get together on the 12th of next month, so I wanted to invite y'all in. Okay.
What are you going to be doing?
Just literally like waking up and just streaming. Literally just
What are you
like
going to be streaming? I wonder if there's any games that we could do together or something.
Unfortunately, I'm going to have to decline. The 12th, unfortunately, is a work day for me.
That is a
like I
work
said,
night for me.
Kazuma, it will literally be until I literally can't go anymore. It is going to be a probably upwards of 15-hour stream.
All right. Well, I will make it if I can.
You better
Oh.
make
So-
sure you plan out your meals.
Anyways,
Oh, I plan to.
is there anything else that anyone else wants to add before I end the recording?
I think that's everything from me.
Yeet.
I just had that one little special announcement because I've been trying to let people know as I can.
Well, everyone, I don't know if my actual stream is going to continue on from here, but I'm going to go ahead and end the recording here, and I will see you guys here shortly.
Bye bye.